Man acts fast to help mysterious, fuzzy lake creature. Most people, even when encountering something peculiar, keep their eyes on their phones. But when one Oklahoma man set out on a walk through his normal stomping grounds, an odd figure caught his eye. Rather than keep it moving, his nosiness prevailed, and his observations wound up making a life-saving impact. Jim Passmore of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, started his morning in the usual way. He got dressed, leashed his dogs, and set out into the crisp spring air. Nothing drove sleep from his body like trotting on woodland trails, breathing in the sweet smells of damp earth. His usual stomping grounds was Hikey Creek, a park frequented by outdoor lovers admiring the plentiful pecan trees. Runners and hikers lagged around the quiet banks of the water. There, while waiting for his Yorkies to do their business, Jim spotted something out of the ordinary. A strange mass floated on the surface of the park's waters. Sitting in stark contrast to the normally smooth surface of the creek, it was big, brown, and vaguely animal-like. Squinting to get a better look, he guessed the object was a log, but he wasn't sure. Edging closer to the shore, Jim stepped off the trail into the muddy grass. If he could just get a closer look, he might be able to satisfy his curiosity. Finally, with a jolt, Jim realized the thing wasn't a thing at all. It was covered in brown hair, and it was alive. Feeling lucky to glimpse a wild creature in its natural habitat, Jim was only more intrigued. The unknown animal was moving, barely. Could it be gently stirring in its sleep? Floating but rattled by a dream? Then his dogs began to snarl. The nearer Jim inched to the animal, the more riled up his tiny pups got. Their predatory snarls and growls made it seem like they sensed some looming danger. Nevertheless, he grew concerned by the animal's feeble movements. It looked desperate and stuck. Since the thing was hanging out on a wooded, muddy creek bank, all signs suggested it was a beaver. Then, fresh off the revelation, he noticed something hidden in the brush that hinted towards a more sinister situation. A carrier. The case was large, the kind used to transport pets to the vet, and appeared abandoned. Poking around inside, Jim discovered a large, filthy blanket. What worried him more was that beneath the blanket was a heavy, weighted chain. Standing there, Jim tried to piece together what was going on. Obviously, someone had discarded the carriage. Judging by the haphazard scene, the dirty blanket, the chain, the bitten and mangled cage, a cruel individual had dumped a helpless creature in the wild. Someone, Jim thought, intended to harm the animal, but it escaped. While understanding washed over Jim, a rustling in the woods got his attention. Another beaver crawled out of the undergrowth. Jim took this as a sign. Not fleeing from human contact, the beaver moved into the open. Jim watched, mystified, as it crossed the ground and moved closer to the creek's edge towards the mystery creature. Seeing as he had pegged the mystery animal as a beaver, Jim took this new beaver's fantastical intervention as a positive omen to trust his gut. He approached this beaver, creeping the final few feet towards the floating animal. The other animal stirred, weakly, trapped in the mud, suction of the water. Side by side, Jim knew he'd guessed wrong. The creature was way too big to be a beaver, unless it was a radioactive giant one. All along, the creature in distress had been a big, fluffy dog. Muck and grime concealed a gorgeous collie. Glad he further investigated the mystery creature, Jim stepped into the creek, now determined to save him. Better safe than sorry, Jim called out to some other pedestrians to give him a hand freeing the dog. They gathered around him, but as Jim had feared, any contact sent the dog into frenzy mode. It bit someone who got too close. With the creature stuck in the mud, Jim reevaluated his strategy. They needed to be careful. Grabbing onto the scared pooch would only freak it out further. So in order to unstick the cranky thing, they needed a distraction. A solution popped into Jim's noggin. The dog couldn't bite what it couldn't see. Grabbing a dark sweatshirt, he draped it over the suffering dog's head. Cutting out all vision and light worked like a charm. The hairy creature appeared soothed. Now that the dog was subdued, they had to yank it free. He slipped further into the mud, and so would the rescuers if they kept standing in the gloop. They needed a pulley system. Wrangling up a makeshift lift composed of dog leashes, they looped the ropes around its belly. Planting their feet, the gang heaved. You'd figure several able-bodied men could pluck the helpless creature out in seconds, but it was as if this guy had been superglued. Finally, after one high-stakes game of tug-of-war, the dog slipped free. Elated, Jim pulled back the covering and wiped away the mud to reveal the dog's face. The dog looked thankful but understandably terrified. There was no telling how long the poor creature wrestled to free itself from the mud after its owner deliberately cast their pet away. All they could confirm was that the handsome doggy appeared perfectly healthy. Please share this story with your friends and family.